All right, welcome everyone to the 2020 APEC Groundbreakers Virtual Tour by APACO UC. This year, our event will be the biggest one ever done with 174 sessions, including normal sessions, workshops, and hands-on labs from 123 different speakers over 11 days. Also, it will cover sessions on 4 different languages. Please remember to register to as many sessions you can, and all sessions will be available to replay as many times you want for 2 weeks after the initial session date and time. You can also interact with the speaker at any time during that 2 weeks by posting questions or comments directly in the playback session page. I would like to say thanks to our Oracle user groups and Java user groups that made this event possible, and also to our sponsors, Oracle Groundbreakers and CloudDB. Now for today's session, upgrading from OBIEE to OAS, the benefits and the path to modernizing your analytics by Berg and Gianni Ceresa. Please feel free to write questions at any time during this session using the Q&A tab, and Gianni and Christian will be monitoring. If they miss any questions, I will be also looking. I will be reminding them in the end or during the session if it's something urgent. If any issues during the session, technical issues or anything that you need to talk to me as the moderator, please feel free to use the chat to contact me, not the speakers. The speakers you contact using the Q&A, and the moderator, myself, Francisco, by using the chat. Now, without any more delays, I would like to leave you with this amazing session by Christian and Gianni. And Christian, I stop in the sharing and you can start sharing your screen. I will put myself on mute at this moment.
Thank you so much, Francisco. Right, let's get this started. Okay. Right. Good morning, everybody, or rather good afternoon for you guys down under. It's nice to be presenting again. So today, Gianni and me, we're going to talk about upgrading from OBIEE to Oracle Analytics Server. And this is actually going to be a more hands-on session, meaning we're going to go into a lot more technical details than normal talks of this kind. We're going to do a lot of context. We're going to do a lot of explaining, not just telling you ABC and this is what you get. So bear with us. It's going to take quite some time to go through all this, and I still hope we can get through it in time. So very quickly, my name's Berg. I'm an Oracle ACE Director for Analytics. I'm doing this stuff since almost 20 years now. I'm working with data warehousing, data science, analytics, and everything around that since 2001. You can find me all over the presentation world, from Oracle stuff like Open World and user conferences like Kscope, but also on open source conferences like the Riga Dev Days. Sometimes I do blog, not very much, because you more find me, well, first of all, on events like this, and second of all, either in our Telegram group on analytics and on the Oracle forums, either developer communities or the Cloud Customer Connect. I'm a community advocate, I'm a trainer for Oracle, and I also work very closely with Oracle product management for the development, for the new development of these products. So, Gianni, please go ahead.
So I'm Gianni Ceresa. I'm living in Switzerland, just as Christian. I'm doing these things, so working with analytics, data, EPM tools, so a bunch of Oracle products for more than 10 years. I'm also an ACE director. Just like Christian, I have a blog where I don't really write too much, to be honest, at least not in the last months. I'm still waiting for the inspiration. Let's call it like that. Spending way too much time on forums, even on the new one, which is a quite rubbish migration, but that's another topic. And then, yeah, as Christian, I also just travel around and present on various events for various user groups. And we also co-founded Aces Atom, a free online content. By the way, there is a new episode coming in 1 week. Go on the website and have a look at the agenda. It's free to attend. And I keep spamming the product managers from time to time, just as Christian does.
Thank you, Gianni. Yes, product management allows us to get a lot of input from us. Right, so very quickly, you've probably seen this slide already, but it's very important to us to remind everybody of the ACE program, to remind everybody of what this actually stands for. So the ACE program is a community organization. It's run by Oracle, but it's not actually Oracle employees. It's people from the community, people working in consultancies, people working at clients that are the advocates for Oracle products, for all different Oracle products there are. And we're here to help other users of Oracle products use the products. We're here to help them understand how things work. We're here to help them get the best out of their solutions. And the most important thing is it's all about sharing. And this is why we do these presentations. This is why we run our chat channels, why we do stuff on the forums. And if you would like to become involved with this, then there's always the possibility to nominate yourself or a peer for the program, and basically, yes, join the community in a more active role. We're always looking for new people here. So with that, let's jump right into the actual topic. Hello, next one. So with upgrades, and especially for Oracle BI, before you start, the question is never ever, should we upgrade? If you're asking this question, or if somebody in your organization is asking this question, then you're basically already getting somehow on the wrong path, because the question is not should we upgrade, but the question is, why should we waste money? Why should we be burdened with outdated technology? Because very simply, upgrades, they're free. They don't cost you money in terms of you need to pay for doing upgrades. Obviously, you do the work, so whoever does the work has to get paid. Makes sense. But there's no additional cost attached to an upgrade. And just going back to the wasting money and burden with outdated technology bit, especially in today's world, if you think about it, how often do apps upgrade on your mobile phone? Once every month? Once every 2 months? Sounds about right. So just because something is running on a server somewhere and not on your mobile phone, should this really be outdated and running technology stacks from years ago, which probably aren't capable and compatible anymore with your current browser, your other applications that you're using? Why should you do this? So I never understood this kind of thinking already way back when, so before the cloud came along and everything. But especially today, with the release cycles of the products that we have, with the fast-paced release cycles that we have, you shouldn't stop your work in terms of saying, well, we're going to upgrade in 5 years and then do a huge leap. That's a complete waste of money. You're losing money because Oracle gives you all the new functionality that comes along for free. Everything that comes along in the new upgraded versions of OBIEE and OAS, you get that for free. So you don't need to take money into your hand and actually do it. Now, then with this out of the way, before we start, let's set the context. So where does Oracle Analytics come from, and why is it important that we talk about this kind of things? So Oracle Analytics is actually older than you might think. And a lot of people don't know this because the history is so diverse. But we started with this whole thing back in 1997. It's weird to say 1900 numbers nowadays. In 1997, a company called Enquire released the Enquire server at that time. And if you are familiar with the architecture of Oracle Analytics, then you will know the core pieces of the whole solution are things like the BI server, which is the number crunching engine, the brain of the whole thing, and the core BI presentation server, which, well, presentation server, it does the presentation of the content to you. Also the administration tool, the catalog manager, scheduler, etc., etc. So these things, they literally exist since more than 20 years. And don't think that they're bad technology because they're that old, because some managers out there, let's say, tend to think, oh, it's old technology because it's around since 20 years. Well, if that's old technology, then first of all, stop using a database, that's even older. Stop using cars, that's even older, etc., etc. So it's very well established. Then in 2001, a company called Siebel came along and bought Enquire and changed the labeling to Siebel Analytics. And what Siebel did was mainly they bought Enquire to get a marketing segmentation engine. So they didn't really buy it as a business intelligence, as an analytics tool. They bought it for marketing. And then they realized, hey, wait a second. We bought an actual analytics platform tool. So they started adding things to that. They started adding things like catalog groups for security enhancements. They started adding action framework, so integration and embedding analytics into other applications and other applications into analytics. And they added more sources, so new data sources. Right. Siebel owned the product for about 5 years, and then along came Oracle. Oracle bought it in 2007, well, 6 actually. And since the Oracle acquisition, you all know Oracle, you all know how diverse the Oracle product range is. So Oracle did a lot of things. Oracle added basically integration to their whole other ecosystem. They added BI Publisher integration, they added WebLogic integration, they added Essbase, scorecarding strategy, obviously even more data sources. And then recently, with the very newest functional releases, and especially cloud releases, they added the new data visualization. They added real-time data flows. They added embedded data engineering. They added external data sets. So basically, yay, you can upload your Excel sheets and run them in the solution. So Oracle did a lot of stuff there, and which obviously had a lot of impact on the functional scope, and in the sense of, well, if you start upgrading, you get all this for free in the new functional scope of the product. And if we then look at, well, they started doing all these cloud products with very, very new and up-to-date feature sets. So OAS then comes along, which is the latest alignment of these feature sets. So in terms of functionality. So I said cloud, and it's always important to include cloud because nothing is possible to be talked about without using the word cloud anymore. So OAC, Oracle Analytics Cloud, is based on the second to last on-premises code base, which is 12c, and had cloud-only features that were really only for OAC, so for the cloud version. This basically is over. OAC is no longer a standalone. OAS has come along and is the newest member of the family that aligns the functional content with the cloud. So obviously cloud will have an advantage because it gets releases far more frequently. At the moment, we're standing at between 3 and 5 releases per year, but the common release cycle will be once per quarter, meaning OAC, if we take this slide as a reference, when the alignment happened, OAC and OAS both were at 5.5, which was beginning of 2020. Now OAS, with its yearly releases, is still OAS 5.5. There were some dot releases after that, but OAC, in terms of major releases, is already at 5.8. So that means functionally, OAC keeps evolving, and beginning of next year, we will have OAS either 6.1 or 2021. We don't know how they will call this yet. So with the yearly release, OAS will be aligned and get the functional scope of the whole year of development that was in OAC, in the cloud. So, and just as a hint and a warning to you, it can happen that sometimes Oracle Analytics Server, so the new functional platform, is actually referred to as a 12c version, so 12.215, for example, in support notes. That's the reason. The reason for that is basically the code base is the same between OAC and OBIEE, and that was the root of all of this. And OAS is basically a relaunch of the whole platform with a new name, with a new functional scope, i.e. you get everything when you buy the large version. And that's why sometimes you can find this. So don't be confused by that. Right. Now let's look more generally over time in terms of what has happened with analytics these last couple of years. So we all started with not just with OBIEE, but with all the other tools out there in general. Analytics started with a very, very strong focus on centralized solutions, meaning governed solutions managed by IT departments, managed by specialists. And then it went more into a self-service phase where people started worrying about, well, how can I empower my user? How can I give the productivity to them? How can I get them to create their own content? Which kind of worked / didn't work, because yes, people want to have the empowerment to do things, but most of the time they don't really want to do much work themselves. They just want to discover stuff, and that's how we got into the whole augmented analytics era. And the augmented analytics is really about being a data-driven business and not having people sit down and think a lot about, well, which algorithm do I need to use, which model do I need to apply, and what do I need to code, but rather, I actually want a tool to propose things to me. I want a tool to run these algorithms for me. I want a tool to automatically suggest things. And obviously, all the tools out there, if you look at the ecosystem of the different analytics tools out there, the tools support these different things. There are centralized tools, there are self-service tools, there are tools that are specifically made for augmented, but we don't actually want that. We want an integration of this. We want a unification of this. We want a one-stop shop for these solutions. We don't want to go and say, right, I have two tools to do my centralized reporting. I have my dashboarding solution. Then I have something that my business users out there have, where I have like 500 deployments for self-service. Oh, and then we have augmented analytics specifically for our data scientists. Because obviously, your data scientists, just because they're the new hot thing, they will not do the whole business of the company. They will just do one part. On the other hand, if you look at your dashboarding and reporting, just because you had it 5 years ago doesn't mean that it's outdated or even irrelevant today. You still need that. People use that to run their daily business, to run the company. So, and obviously, we don't want to use 5 solutions. We don't We don't want to have 5 different tools deployed. I mean, first of all, that's not really the most clever thing to do in terms of your investment, nor in terms of your workflow, nor in terms of your administration in the background. We want to have this all covered in a unified, integrated, and coherent way. And this is especially important, integrated and coherent, because basically Oracle Analytics is the only solution out there which provides you all these functionalities within one single tool. And if you think about dashboarding, pixel perfect reporting on the one hand, going over self-service, mobile, into the region of natural language processing, voice-enabled data enrichment, augmented analytics in one tool, you want it to be coherent. You want it to use the same, for example, governance in terms of security, in terms of data access control, in terms of functional access control. And obviously, it's about giving the right capability to the right people. We have analytics in terms of dashboarding and contextual analytics for operational level. Not everybody needs this, but a lot of people need this for their day-to-day job. Not everybody's day-to-day job is analytics, but analytics has to be a part of their day-to-day job. Self-service. Yes, a lot of people will do self-service, but again, you won't force it on everybody. And exploration and discovery, and this is then where you get into the modern augmented analytics. You want people to be able to connect to any data source. You want self-service to be a part of data exploration. You want people to be able to bring in their data and use that data in the system. You don't want to have them to go to IT, wait for 3 months to integrate a new data source, and then, oh, yes, the data source is ready now, you can use it. Well, I'm the business guy. It took you 3 months to do this. Actually, the window is closed because this is no longer a topic for us. So we have to have this capability in the system at your fingertips immediately. And that's the reason why it's very important to stay up to date with the functionality, because if you only upgrade once every 3 to 5 years, and then you say, oh, right, so we're missing, for example, we have our dashboards, but we don't really have any self-service capability in terms of uploading your own sheets and using machine learning on your Excel sheets that you uploaded to the system. We have to buy something, implement this, and then integrate it with the other solution. Okay, another 1-year project, easy. And then you realize, well, it actually uses a different security. We have to multiply the data because it actually uses a proprietary data store, etc., etc. Whereas this whole money, this whole effort, this whole time that you spent there is completely wasted because the tool actually already includes this capability since 4 years for free out of the box, and you don't have it just because you didn't upgrade. And that's what we find at many, many clients. They have a multitude of tools, they have a multitude of solutions simply because they didn't upgrade what they already had, meaning what they already paid for. And so they're missing stuff that they're still paying with the license and spending money again, and the second and the third and the fourth time for other tools because they didn't upgrade. So in terms of the product offering, I said OBIEE was repackaged as OAS. So we really have this new streamlined product offering since last year, where you only have 3 main products that exist anymore. So it's Oracle Analytics Cloud, it's Oracle Analytics Server, and the Fusion Autonomous Warehouse, which is basically the product that used to be known as Oracle BI Applications, which is the pre-configured data warehouse and content that's made for Oracle applications like eBusiness and all the Fusion products in the cloud. Right, so with that context over, I'm going to hand over to Gianni about to talk more about you. Okay, if you go to OS, what does it actually bring you?
Yes, thanks, Christian. So my screen must be shared now.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Okay, so right before to go into the details of how do you do an upgrade, because after these few slides I'm going to talk about, we're really going to, based on your version, how do you move up to OAS, covering all the scenarios of the last 10 years of BI with Oracle, kind of. So what do you get with OAS actually? Why do you want to go to OAS? So as Christian said, it has been released as OAS 5.5. It started at the last day of January with the Linux release. The Oracle marketing content says, oh yeah, we have more than 160 new features compared to on-premises, so compared to the last 12.2.1.4 OBIEE. We now have the new fancy and shiny machine learning features. We have natural language processing for self-service content, and you can speak to your system, it will reply. We have all the new data preparation, data gateway, and data sets and data flows, all those things. And this was the initial situation, and Windows was supposed to be supported quite soon, so just a few weeks after, 1 or 2 months after. In practice, for Windows, we had to wait till just a few weeks ago. We had to wait till 4th of September to get the Windows release. Because it's still OAS 5.5, as Christian said, OAS is on a functional base, a yearly release, not like OAC just releasing more often. So even the Windows release, it came 6 months later, but still, not more, 8 months later, but still it is a 5.5. So functional wise, OAS 5.5 for Windows, it's just the same feature as Linux, except that now it supports SQL Server for the RCU. So this is really the only difference that you get in terms of functionalities. Just let's have a look at what are these functionalities. Why do you actually want to go to OAS? Because that's really the new part that you didn't got before with OBIEE, or at least in a limited way. Obviously, data visualization. So it was called VA, Visual Analyzer in the past. It was already part of OBIEE 12c on premises, but it was really a first release. So it was really limited and just a first attempt to bring self-service to the users, trying to compete with the Tableau and Click and all the other fancy tools around the market. Now with OAS, you have the full, I will say, you really have the full new data visualization, which give you this storytelling approach. It's not about building a dashboard with just tables, and some charts, but it's really more letting your data tell a story. So you generally go beyond the numbers. You don't really show often tables. You really show charts in all the possible ways more often. And then you obviously also have like a bunch of functionalities. Like in OBIEE, you were already able to add some forecasting or trends. There were some R scripts to generate these figures. Now with data visualization, it's just one click. You do one click on one chart and you say, hey, give me a forecast, give me a trends, show me the outliers. And the tool will really do everything in the background automatically for you. So they really bring in this augmented side of analytics in just one click. To show you a little bit how data visualization works, but you probably already saw it, but just in case, from an end user point of view. So you start with some content that is available to you on the left side of the screen. And then from there, you just select some columns, drag and drop, and there you have a chart. And then you pick some other columns, drag and drop, you have a second chart. You can change it. You have a bunch of visualization, you can change it. You can set filters for the whole page, for the whole canvas. On top of that, you can keep adding new visualization. So you pick some other columns, drag and drop again, you create a new view. And you start really building your page by drag and drop, by picking your content while you're thinking about the story you're telling with your data. And then just to have a nice interaction, you can say, hey, all these views can actually interact with each other and filter the whole page. So whenever you click on the left, mid, center, or the right side of the screen on the three views, you're just filtering the full page. So it really allows you to explore the data in extreme details, and you didn't do anything special, like in OBIEE, the classic one. You had to set the master details, or you had to add actions or whatever. This kind of interaction, it takes time. You have to configure things. You have to do a lot of clicks. Here it was, hey, I wanted this information, drag and drop, change the view, set a filter, and please allow me to filter the full page based on these things. So it really took few clicks. You clearly see how data visualization from an end user point of view, it's really oriented to this self-service approach, to this power is yours. There is no IT in the background having to build everything for you. It's really, is your content, go, feel free. And then one of the really nice things, it's this augmented side, the machine learning integration they did. How often you end up with some data, you have a data set, and you say, yeah, I understand the labels of my data set, but I have no idea what is inside actually, what are the values. I would have to go and make some views, some visualization to just analyze my data set. In DV, it's one click, right click on any columns, explain, and the system will generate all this information. It tell you what kind of values do you have, what are the split between the values. It tell you what are the drivers of what other columns in the dataset is impacting these values. It tell you, hey, if the other columns is 1, 2, 3, 4, you have yes or no. And then it also start giving you really full description of what is impacting this information and also anomalies detection. It does an analysis of your dataset and say, based on your dataset, I would expect this column to be true instead of false for this combination. So for this kind of combination of the data, there is an anomaly. It's not really following the trends and the standards. And all this information you see on screen generated by the tool, you can actually use them to build a page. So you just select them. It's one checkbox you pick in the explain window. You select all of them, you add them to a page, and you have a full page telling you about your data. It took a one right click, selecting explain, and going through 4 tabs in a window. The tool ran all the statistic calculation, it ran all the prediction algorithms in the background to find the anomalies. It did all the job for you. You only checked some checkboxes. So you clearly see how augmented analytics really make your life easier from an end user point of view. And now this is part of OAS. It's there, it's free. So in terms of visualizations, you can see this is just a little overview of some that you have. There are more views than the classic answers page with just the basic charts. You have a lot more views that are inside that you can pick. And if you're not happy with what you get out of the box, if you want more, you can pick from online. You can go online, there is a library or there is somebody developing for you. You can extend the number of views by adding your own one. As said, all the analytical functions are just one click away. All the outliers, all the clustering, all the trends and forecasting, it's really just one click. Please give me a forecast on this. Done. One click, nothing else. You are not asked to enter any formula. You are not asked for any code. You must not be a data scientist or whatever. It's one click away. Talking about this library of visualization, when you need something else, you can go to this URL. It's a bit long, but if you go to Google and you search for Oracle Analytics Library, you generally go directly to this page. Oracle hosts a library of custom plugins, which are custom visualizations. It's fully free. So not only you get a bunch of new features with the product, but for free, you can even keep extending it. And if you develop a new visualization that is quite nice for your work or for your personal needs, you can also share it with everybody else. You can ask Oracle to load it on this free on this library. So in this page, you can see just 3 examples. The one on the left, it's Oracle. There are many developers at Oracle that develop new views. They didn't make it into the official product because they are maybe just really just specialized views, but they made the code available. So you go to the free library, click download, deploy to OAS. There it is. The one in the center, it's some developer, some really normal people. They were using the tool. They needed for their project a special visualization. They developed it, and there it is. And the one on the right is just a partner, an Oracle partner, an Oracle integrator. They built a visualization. They made it available for everybody else to use for free. So there is also this ask functionality where you can talk to your data. It's really the natural language processing. You can really start speaking with your system. I mean, I'm still a bit old school, so I'm not used to speak with my laptop, but apparently it's something that you can do as an end user. So when you don't know what data you have in front, just skip through this slide because there is a little video. You start with the OAS screen. And then when you see there on top, you have a bar. What are you interested in? Oh, thanks, OAS, for asking. I would like to see the revenues by product type and also per month, please. And while we are at it, add me the number of customers. Thanks. You just enter a sentence. You're just asking your product what you would like to see. Instead of typing, you can really speak. The microphone icon, you can really just speak. And what OAS does is it goes through all the metadata it knows, and it will generate views which match what you are asking for. Obviously, it will also go through the content that you already created. So it will go through the existing visualization, existing projects, and finding matching content. But it really just, the first part of the screen you can see, it generated what you asked for. So you just you just load all your data or your metadata into OAS, and speaking to your system, you generate content on the fly. Then when it go into data set, making it available for speaking to your system to ask things, the list of sources you can use is a lot larger than what classical on-premises OBIEE 12c accepted. Out of the box, you have a predefined connector for a lot of content. You see on this screen, the list of connections keep evolving. So every screenshot we do, it's always outdated. At least on the cloud, it's updated at every release. OAS, at least it's stable for 1 year. You have a bit of everything. It goes from any kind of database to things like Google Drive. If you have a spreadsheet that is shared on a Google Drive, you can go through Google Drive directly to connect to your spreadsheet, and you don't have to download it first on your computer, upload it, indexes, whatever. No, it's all just, they make things easy. And obviously, the old classical Excel, everybody still uses Excel, sadly. But instead of exporting your whole database, doing a data dump of your database, data warehouse into an Excel spreadsheet to analyze locally, with OAS, you as a user, you are pushed to do the opposite. You say, hey, I already know, me as OAS, a bunch of things. I have a lot of data available. But if you have a nice spreadsheet that with some extra information you would like to analyze, well, just upload it. Give me the file, load it into OAS, and then let me, OAS, do the fancy things for you, giving you all the visualization, all these things on top of your Excel file. So drag and drop, you have an Excel file there, and then you can start also transforming your data. This is typically things that people were downloading to Excel to transform the information, to adapt it, to generate some different variants, to apply formulas on top of some data, and then do some charts. Now with data visualization, you have all these transformation steps which don't require an ETL engineer. They don't require somebody knowing ODI or whatever. It's really just simple clicks. There is a little example in this video. I just start by uploading an Excel file. I give it a name and I can see a preview of the data. I say, yes, I want to use it. And then I go into the prepare step. So I could do data preparation. Here you see my data and I can start doing clicks around. I have a social security number. This is not a good number. I cannot really show it publicly. So let me obfuscate it. Then I have a zip code. Oh, but I would like to have cities, countries, all those things. Well, with just one click, the tool see, yes, this is a zip code. So I can give you a state. I can give you a latitude, longitude. I can give you the city name. I can give you the country name. Then I have a first name. Say, let's try to predict the gender based on first name. Of course, it's a prediction. The system is not able to be 100% sure, but it's predicting information based on what you give it. And it's all about one click. As you see, I'm just going through the columns. I select one column, On the right side of the screen, OAS give me some hints. Say, hey, I see that your column is this, this, and that. Maybe you would like to do this action, this one, this one. I didn't enter a single formula, but I fully transformed my dataset by just clicking through. So this is really something extremely powerful, and it doesn't stop there. Sometimes you really need some ETL process, so you really need to merge some sources to add some calculation and things like that. With data visualization, it's part of the tool for free. You have a simple, lightweight, click, 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 click kind of ETL. You can really build a little ETL, and that's also where the machine learning part jump in, because as part of this lightweight ETL, as part of the data flows, you can first train a machine learning model just by clicking through. You will not enter a single piece of code. You just click through some steps and just select options. And once you train your model, you will apply it to generate new data. So in this case, I'm just applying a time series forecast, and then I say, hey, these are the settings. Please generate the time forecast based on previous data. So with OAS, we really do all those things now for free in an extremely simple way. It's all the data visualization part. Christian already mentioned this part of it, but with OAS, really get the two sides of analytics. You have the classical and modern one. For the classical one, there is really no difference with what you know with 12c. It's really the classical standard things. You can the user experience, the screen layout, the look and feel, it's just the same as 12c. So if you use 12c in OAS, you will just be there. You are not lost at all. You keep having publisher as well. You keep having the action framework. You have all those things. And then the modern data discovery and data science aspects, all these new fancy features that are more self-service oriented. Data preparation, it's there for free in our Analytics server. Data visualization as well. Machine learning, it's there. You don't need to buy or install anything. It's just there. Mobile, obviously. I mean, if you already can speak to your browser through your microphone or asking things by typing, there are also mobile apps. There are a bunch of mobile apps. You can also speak through a mobile app to Oracle Analytics server and generate content. There are a few more applications. You can just go through these apps. Oracle generated a lot of content about them. And obviously, because OAS, it's based on 12c, 12c was already HTML5, OAS works on a mobile. So a bunch of slides back, Christian was also telling you, yes, you now have a common code base on various products. So it's all about sharing easily. If you have your Oracle Analytics desktop, so if you have the desktop version of the tool, you can just build up visualization a project, you export it, you go to your Oracle Analytics server, you import it, you enter the password that you set when you export it to decrypt the data, and there you are. So you can easily move content around from environment to environment, from lab, from a personal environment to server in just one click. Import export is extremely simple from an end user point of view. So what we get is really this fancy thing with OAS. It's almost in parity with Oracle Analytics Cloud. Sure, it's a yearly release, but once a year, you're almost aligned with the cloud. And that's not bad, because for many years, 12c was a lot behind. Because of that, you can also say, hey, if at some point I want to move to the cloud, it will be an easier step, because it's just like almost in line. It's almost aligned. And what really is the important part is your existing OBIEE licenses. So the license you already have now, if you check on the bill actually of the last month, they already renamed it. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to change anything. Your OBIEE licenses become Oracle Analytics server licenses. So you get new things for free. So compared to a 12c use case, what you get on top for free is DV. In 12c, DV was a paid thing. You needed an extra piece of licensing to use the visual analyzer. Now you have DV for free. You don't pay a single cent more. You can also use the desktop tool. So you can really deploy the desktop tool for free. If you are a user in Oracle Analytics Server, you are allowed to use, as part of licensing, the desktop one as well for your needs. There is just a little warning. There are some elements that are now deprecated, so please go through the deprecation list. Deprecated content is still there. It really just means it's not going to be evolving in terms of features. And at some point, Oracle will give you a replacement. So it's always good to read the list of deprecations, to just be aware of them. You can still use them, but be aware that something is going to change over the years. And the one that really just didn't make that cut, so the piece that has been removed for real, it was already a zombie because it was a dead walking functionality for years. It's OSSM. The Oracle scorecarding and strategy management tool, it was already dead in 12c because Oracle wrote it in 11g first, and then they wanted to replace an Hyperion product by it, and then it didn't really catch any, I will say, public. So it was already static and not evolving anymore in 12c on premises. Now with OAS, it just didn't make it through. Even on the cloud, it never went to the cloud. And that's why from OAS, it has been removed fully. So if you have a lot of OSSM content, yes, you are going to lose it. You have to transfer it somewhere else. So you have to generate other content or other visualization that replace this content. So because it's so much in line with Analytics Cloud, the question makes sense. Why not go directly to the cloud instead? Why do I still have to bother to go to an on-premises tool? Well, this is just a more philosophical question than features-wise, but let's go through some points. Why do we want OAS? First, because you are in charge, you have full control of it. But having full control of Oracle Analytics Server means you are in charge of it. You are responsible for the service, not me, not Oracle. I mean, except if you are me, but that's a different topic. But I mean, it's really you that is in charge of making sure that your tool works. But because you have Analytics Server, you can just run it wherever you want. You can run it on a server in your basement, classical old school way. You can run it on your laptop. Okay, this is really just for sandboxing and demonstration purposes. It's still an enterprise tool. It's not Excel. So you need a powerful laptop. But you can also just run it on any cloud, but it's not a cloud provided service. You just take any cloud that gives you computational power. You can go to Google, create a compute instance and deploy Oracle Analytics Server there. Amazon, Microsoft Azure, Oracle compute instance. It works. You can customize everything. I mean, you just have the code in front of you, kind of. You have the full access to the tool, to every single piece of the tool, so you can customize everything. And because it's an evolution of 12c, you are not starting from scratch. All you know about 12c just works the same in OAS. So your knowledge just follow you through. Because of all that, you can really embed it into your corporate processes. It just will take the place of OBIEE there inside, nothing much different. The downside is, remember, you just get one feature release per year. You have bug fixes, you have security releases, sure, but feature-wise, new features is only once a year. So why would you like Oracle Analytics Cloud, maybe? Just because you don't want to care, you want to sleep at night, you don't want to receive a call that your server is down. Well, give the job to Oracle. Let them maybe in charge of getting your product up and running. You don't need IT, you don't need a special skill set from the IT to get your servers up and running. You just really go directly to the cloud, click through the screen and create an instance in just a few clicks. It takes really little time to get a new instance up and running in Oracle Analytics Cloud. And the main advantage is you have new releases, new features coming every few months. As Christian said, it's at least once a quarter, but so far at least it's more often than that. So you really get releases every 1, 2, 3 months coming. And on this one, I give it back to Christian for the real fun part of the talk about how do you actually migrate. So Christian.
Thank you, Gianni. Yeah, I should be back now. My microphone didn't want to turn on. All right, so yes, let me get you the, where's the slide? All right, should be back. All right, good. So let's start actually migrating stuff. Let's start migrating from OBIEE to OAS, and we're going to split this in before, during, and after migration steps. So before you start, with so many things, what you do before doing the actual work is at least as important as doing the actual work. And for this, we really base all our recommendation and all our content on our own experiences with upgrades that we had over these last about 10 years, and especially for everything that we did on the 12C and OAS family. And we can't stress this too much. We can't say this often enough. Review what you have before starting to upgrade. Don't just say, okay, we're going to do an upgrade, suck, boom, bang, and we're going ahead. No. Review what you have and then clean up. Reduce the upgrade work. Trust me, every minute you spend doing a review and cleansing your solution, you will get it back tenfold, because not just you avoid upgrading useless content, because most of the time what's not used today and what's deprecated today, you won't use it in the new one either. But also, you're not just removing it for this one upgrade, you're also removing it for the next one a couple of months down the road when the next version comes along, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Trust me, OAS, this is for the time being the last big jump that there is. So Oracle will not come along and say in 2 years, oh, we're going to do another huge release again. No, it's going to be smaller, but it's going to be a lot faster. So whatever you can clean up now, you will gain for the next N releases, or for the next, I don't know, 10 releases in the future, because you will be able to keep pace. And that's what it's all about. We want to be able to get your upgrades to a point where you can do them fast, where you can do them efficient, where you can do them on time, so that you don't have to wait for the huge release windows. So clean up, kick out stuff, kill things. Look at the list of stuff that Oracle says is deprecated or desupported. Review your certification and system requirements before you start. So many times we get questions on our chat or indirect emails, unfortunately, or also a lot of times on the forums. Oh, I'm just installing this new version and it's not working. Well, what's not working? And then you play ping pong 50 times, and then you realize, well, you're just installing stuff on uncertified systems, on outdated things. You have to check this before you start. Please. we like to help you, but 500 times the same question, it's not beneficial to you. You lose time. So, and in terms of migration paths, this is also something that you need to think about before starting the work. So where do we actually stand? Where do we actually start from? And where do you want to go? Well, we want to go to OAS, Oracle Analytics Server, the newest on-premises analytical platform. Cool. But if you look at the documentation, just in terms of starting point, we see, well, officially, you have to start from minimum OBIEE 11.119, which was the last, so the terminal release of the 11G family. And in there, you run the migration tool and you import the bundle into OAS. That's what the documentation says. Then documentation obviously also talks about any 12C version there is, which is basically just a bar file and then you upload a snapshot. But also it talks more specifically about 12.214, which is the terminal release for the 12C family. And there you can actually do an in-place upgrade. So basically just patch over whatever version is installed right now in that machine. So that's the documentation. Right. What's reality? Reality is a bit different because there are a lot more paths than these three, and they all have their own peculiarities and specificities. First of all, what the documentation doesn't cover at all, obviously, is 10G. Yes, there still are clients out there that are using 10G, and for those, I mean, we're literally talking about a version jump of more than 10 years now, where they've just stayed on that old and outdated tech, so it's kind of high time to upgrade. Now, problem with 10G is, well, we're just saying this for completeness, but it's very laborious because, as I said, you're jumping over more than 10 years of product development. So at some point, you have to pay the price for having stayed on something so outdated. It's very manual, so you can reuse many steps from the official Oracle upgrade to OAS, but there's a lot of stuff that you have to do before manually. And the shortest, so just a 3-step process that you could do is go from 10G to 11.119. So this is a real upgrade in and of itself because it's a huge version jump, and then do the second real upgrade from 11.119 to OAS. So you have this is the absolute minimum. You can't go below this. What you can also do is, and this is something where you may think, okay, oh, that looks like more, Christian. That's actually worse. Well, yes and no, because if we say this version 2, where we go from 10G to 11.119, so terminal release of the 11G family, to 12.214, the terminal release of the 12G family, to OAS, it's a bit a safer approach because you have 2 intermediary steps of terminal releases for their own product families, 11G and 12C, where you can validate things, where you can review things, where you can assure that things are actually working, and then jump to OAS. And here we're coming back to my initial slide. Clean up, kill things that you don't need, kill things that you, for example, created as workarounds because in 10G or whatever version you were on, you had to do it because the functionality did not exist out of the box. Well, most likely it does exist out of the box now. There have been 10 years of product development. Check what's in the system and then do it. So don't just blindly say, okay, we must not spend much time on an upgrade, that's wasted. We just migrate whatever we do right now, everything we migrate into the new system. I'm sorry to say this, but that's the worst thing you can do. Literally, that's the most uninformed decision any manager can take on an upgrade, because it means I don't care what's new. I don't care what Oracle gives me for free because I'm already paying it in the licenses, and now they added 500 new things. You're disregarding that. You're saving pennies in order to waste dollars, literally. So don't do that. That's the reason why we had this intro slide, and I can't make it clear enough. This is really something that you need to do. So going through the 11G family, and you'll notice on the top of here, it doesn't say 11.119, it says 11.117. And 11.117 basically stands for everything below 11.119. So officially, this isn't something that's directly supported by Oracle. But just like 10G, it's very easily doable because obviously, yeah, it's the same thing just with more steps. And again, there's 2 paths. You can do 11.7 to 11.9 and then to OAS, or that's the other possibility. You can do 11.117 to 12C, 214, and then to OAS. And again, personally, I prefer the second path simply because it gives you the capability of jumping to a terminal, meaning very stable release, 12c family, and then jump to OAS. And here's something to think about. Gianni talked about the multi-platform approach, how you can simply move things from OAS to OAC, from OAC to OAS, and even to the desktop, because the desktop applications, so Oracle Analytics Desktop, that's just the same thing on your desktop, which means that you can also move there seamlessly. So if you prepare things in a perfect form before moving to OAS, this last box of OAS in my second path, I could switch it out and I could say, hey, I'm actually moving a part to OAC because, for example, we have different deployments. We have one central one for corporate, and then we have cloud ones, for example, for dispersed developers or so. So never forget this. So everything that we're talking about, it is really tightly related, and it gives you this flexibility and freedom to choose whatever you want to do. Now, with the intermediary 11.119, as an explanation, coming back to what I said initially, 11.119 was a hybrid code base for the very, very first cloud version, which wasn't called Oracle Analytics Cloud, but it was called BI Cloud Service, so BICS. So with this, you wouldn't have a real 12c step, but it will just cut things short in order to go, and this is important if you choose this, to go to the shortest supported path according to the documentation. So if you just want to say to Oracle support when you have a problem, okay, we did this, so we stuck with whatever you're saying in the documentation, that's the way to go, because you can say, all right, it's in the doc, it's the shortest critical path, and we do this. But, very important, if you choose any of the steps that in the end jump from 11.119 to OAS, not all of the newest restrictions and checks on the tool are being applied before you go to OAS. So that means in the very last step in OAS, you can't just deploy and it runs and everything is fine. There are a lot of things that you need to check in OAS, so in the final target solution. So work is done in OAS as well. I'm personally trying to reduce the work done in target as much as possible and eliminate things beforehand. Why? Very simple, because then as soon as I've migrated, I don't have to have two systems running in parallel for 500 years until I figured out all the little bugs, but I can do the switch over much faster. I can prepare things in the new OAS without giving access to everybody, without having to switch over. I can run these things in parallel without being productive and then do the switch. Whereas if I do all the work in OAS, well, I have to run the old system productive while the new system is already there, etc., etc. Now, 12.2.1.4, on the other hand, if we do this as an intermediary step, as I said, you go to a terminal release of 12c, which is 2.1.4. And a migration of 11G to 12.2.1.4, that's well known. That's been done literally hundreds of times. I've migrated to 12 from 11 about 14 times so far. So we've done this to death. We know everything that can go wrong. And hence we can kill many things very easily and very efficiently in this step, instead of having to relearn it or redo it in terms of running into the same wall again in the step from 12c to OAS. And since it's a terminal release and the code base is the same as OAS, the new restrictions and checks are applied already. So new things that have come along in terms of restrictions on the RPD, on the metadata, for example, that's in place already. Because you have to be able to move from 12.2.1.4 to the cloud, where you don't have all these nice little 500,000 options in the config files and so on that you have on premises. You don't have all these tweaks that you can do. So it has to be precise from the beginning, which means all these checks are already there, because 12.2.1.4 is also the basis for moving to OAC, to Oracle Analytics Cloud. So it's the sanest version to start from. proper, if you want to put it like this. So this is really what we recommend that you do. Go to a terminal recent 12c and then to OAS. Now, obviously, in general, old stuff to OAS. It's very important to remember. It's multi-step. You won't be able to do it in one thing, in one jump. It's just not possible. Both are out of place upgrades, so you need different environments. The effort, especially if you're coming from 10G or one of the early 11Gs, like 11.5 or 11.6 or 7, the effort can be very high because a lot of the cleanup, a lot of the precision that's being required in order to move to a cloud code base like OAS and OAC hasn't been done. So you need to do this, and hence the effort can be really very high. But, and I'm sorry to be keeping on hitting on this, this is the price that you have to pay for having stayed on old versions for such a long time. So organizations at some point pay the price. And as I said, OAS is the newest huge release, which will probably not happen for many years down the road. So if you don't pay this price now, it will be worse later on. So pay it now, go to OAS, and you have the latest and greatest and a stable version for the future. Then, obviously, I said it already, remember that you're doing a technological jump of over 10 years. There are things that will come up there. There are things that will hit you in the face simply because, well, 10 years ago, we didn't use the same operating systems. We didn't use the same browsers. We didn't use the same core technologies. That has all changed. Now, 11.119, again, the official option says go from 11.119 to OAS. There is the option to have this additional intermediary step of 12.214 and then going to OAS. And this is the directly supported one. And you will have to do all the cleaning in OAS. All the adaptation has to work in OAS. If you do the intermediary step, yes, it's an additional step, but you have this safety net. So if you have the time and you have the know-how and you have the ability to do it, it's nice to do an intermediary step in the 12c family because you can do all the work and validation before moving to OAS. Then 12c family, except for 12.214, again, you can go for 12.210, 12.213 to OAS, or you can go for the safety net again with the extra step. So both are there. Now, in-place upgrade, out-place upgrade, which is basically the differentiation between going from 12.213, installing a new server to OAS, or having your existing machine upgrading, so patching to 12.214, and then upgrading / patching in place on this specific machine to OAS. So what's the difference between those in terms of which should I choose? When you have the choice, what's better? Well, within place, obviously you can keep the existing domain you have. You can keep the machine, you can keep the installation. Out of place is you move it to another one. So for us, in-place upgrades, please forget about them. Simply because so many times people try to stick with what they have. Oh no, we have to ask for new servers. It's an additional hassle with the admin guys, with the infrastructure guys. But I said operating systems before. Yeah, operating systems also can go out of date. And if you're, for example, just thinking about upgrading to OAS now because you're on Windows, and we just had the Windows release, well, it's probably not a good idea to take your old server that's running Windows 2012 R2 with whatever SQL Server database 2012 and some Internet Explorer 10 or so. Probably a good idea to upgrade this as well. Don't underestimate this. Just take the new server and install the stuff. You may want to look at, well, is this still actually up to date in terms of CPU, memory? Do I want to replace my disk with SSDs, or do we want to go for virtualization? So if you do an in-place upgrade, yeah, obviously you can do whatever, you can reuse whatever you have now and do the work on that physical or virtual machine that you have, but you can't actually upgrade your operating system. You can't upgrade the CPU memory at the same time. So also, if you just upgrade, patch kind of the machines that you have, you can't do cross-environment comparisons. You'll lose your current environment. And obviously, if something does go wrong, what do you fall back to? Nothing, because you've lost it. Well, you can probably restore an image of the server, but is that really something that you want to do? Out of place for us is the thing to do, but it's got some drawbacks as well. And we're being frank here, based on our experience. We're not trying to sell you some oh, we're the best. We're actually being frank here. This is what we ran into with clients. And obviously, what they complain about, well, it's a new installation. We need to do some configuration again that we already did. For example, security RAM integration, LDAP, Microsoft Active Directory. Why do we need to do this again? Well, it's a new machine. You need to do it again. But come on, this takes like 15 minutes. It needs an additional environment. We put this in drawbacks because we were kind of hesitating about what can we put in drawbacks, but yeah, it does need an additional environment. But still, come on, nowadays, if stuff is being organized well from the infrastructure department, that's a couple of minutes to get a new environment running. So, and with this, I'm going to hand over to Gianni, who will talk more about the very nitty-gritty details of the upgrade on the technical side.
Okay, thanks, Christian. And yeah, so here I'm back. So there's just one little detail. This is not really, for many, it doesn't sound like an important one. But trust me, it's more important than what you can think. When you do an in-place upgrade, you have no choice on this. But if you do an out-of-place, there are reasons for it as well. There are some defaults which sadly are not really good. And I stopped counting how many times I see installations that are just badly done because of defaults. So by default, when you install OBIEE or even Oracle Analytics Server, the structure you get on disk is like this. You have a main folder, the Oracle Home, and inside there you have user projects and the domains are there inside. This is really the default one with the graphical interface installation. The problem is, okay, you do it, it works, fine. You're happy for 1 year. Next year, new version of OAS come. You want to do the in-place upgrade to just keep going on and having the last release, so you don't need to pay a super extra price in many years when you just decide to upgrade all of a sudden. So you install the new OAS. No idea about this name, so I call it OAS 2021 just randomly. But the thing is, you now have a new OAS. You would like to delete the old one. You can't. You cannot touch the old folder because the domains, so all the configuration part, all the content part is there inside. And people tried to take it out and change it afterward. They gave up and they said, yeah, reinstalling everything will be easier. So when you do an installation, and a reason also for an out of place, it's let's do it clean. Starting clean now will make it clean for the future. If you read at the Fusion middleware documentation, there is this little screenshot. It's a lot bigger, but it really clearly say split the config from the product part. Binaries one side, configuration domains the other side. So if you during the installation you say, hey, I have a folder for my configuration, for my domains, for my content, and then I have a folder for my binaries, for the product. When next year you decide to all of a sudden do an in-place upgrade to just have the new fancy features, you just install the new binaries inside the product folder next to the old one. And once you're done, you can freely delete the old release. So you yourself in 1 year will be quite happy to have this clean structure instead of having to remember, why do I have 3 binary folder in my installation? Which one is right? Then you maybe delete the old one thinking, oh, that's an old release. Yeah, you just screw up everything because your domain was inside there. So this is one little detail why out of place makes sense, even if you could do an in place at some point. Clean up the configuration thing. And as part of the cleanup, it has already been said, even by Christian, the slides before and all those things. I'm repeating it because it's really important. Before to start doing an upgrade, even in place or even out of place, whatever upgrade, when you take the configuration with you at some point, try to clean up first. So you probably have a bunch of legacy code, a bunch of workarounds, a bunch of quick wins that you did in your configuration. Do you still need them? Does it still make sense? Maybe not. And also, why would you come with old solution to a new platform? New platform, new standards, new rules. I mean, if there have been years of development going on, if Oracle spent time and time developing new things, it's not for you to come in with your old configuration and say, oh yes, I have a fancy new OracleMania server. Please run as an OBIEE 10G. It makes no sense. There are also details like Flash. If you had a Flash configuration in your files, I mean, Flash now is purely deprecated. They even stopped supporting it in browser from later this year, if I'm not wrong. So you don't need this configuration at all. Get rid of it, clean up. For the real migration, so Christian gave you all the scenarios. One of them was using the migration tool. The migration tool is all in one. You run this migration tool, you get everything inside. RPD, catalog, security, all is put into the migration bundle. You are not asked many things. You just run it, nothing to do, no settings, no configuration. It's a nice, cool black box. We love those things. You have no idea what's going on. Finger crossed, it maybe works, maybe not. What do you do when it doesn't? Well, not much. You don't have a lot. You maybe have some little logs, maybe. They will not really tell you anything. So if it works, good for you. Good job, well done. If it doesn't, sorry, go back, try again. So the problems that we saw so far in various migration, when you use the migration tool, things that can make it go wrong, but really badly wrong, is really the old version are just quite open. They were nice and they didn't thought about all the weird stuff that people could do with a tool. So there were not many security limits, like boundaries to say, no, please don't build a model totally randomish. So you now have new rules, but your old model may be conflict with the new rules. So what was allowed before? Nope, not anymore. And that's why your bundle migration doesn't work. And also, this is a really annoying one. When you use some not plain English characters like when you have maybe your application roles in German, for example, as a little hint to a friend. So when you have fancy German characters into application roles, it maybe looks nice on your screen, but nobody who developed this tool thought it could exist. So yeah, some characters could make your migration to not work because of that's not plain English text. Pay attention to that one. It could be one of the reasons. And also the thing is, there are new standards, you have to follow them. It's not a plan B, or why would you be migrating, upgrading? That's why you really just have to bring the necessary old one to the new one. So don't take everything with you, really just take what you need with you. It has been said already, but I keep repeating it because bringing down the necessary one is the best way to have a shorter and cleaner migration. And please don't even try to make your new OracleMania server act as an old OBIEE 11G, for example. There are flags in the configuration to still do that. What's the point? Why are you upgrading if you want to make it run as the old one? That's really make no sense. So in the OracleMania server, you can go to data visualization in the snapshot page. You have a menu. You can download or upload the migration utility, and then you can upload the migration bundle you generate from the utility. That's how you can do the migration utility upgrade. The other way to do an upgrade is the bar file. The bar file is now the standard for migrating things around between even on-premises and cloud, for example. It's still all in one. In a bar file, you can have all your catalog or your RPD or your security. The advantage compared to the migration bundle before is really you can choose what you want to add in your bar file. Do you want the RPD? Do you want the catalog? Do you want the security? So what happens if things just doesn't work? If you still have an error, what can you do? Well, even the bar file is still a black box in the end. The bar file is just one file. You're not supposed to look inside. Luckily, there are ways to look inside and try to find out what didn't go through and why. That's not supported things, so I'm not going into many details, but at least being a black box, it's a more a gray box than the migration bundle, because at least you can a bit look into the bar file and try to guess what's going wrong. And as I said, you can take subset of the content, but not really subset of every single piece of the content. You cannot say just take this subject area, just take this business model. It's all about let's take the RPD, the full RPD, but you can say let's take the RPD, but not the catalog. So this is how the bar file allow you to choose the content. You can see on the right side of the screen that you can really pick which block of content do you want. Do you want machine learning? Yes, no. Do you want the catalog? Yes, no. Do you want the security? Yes, no. And when you import a bar file, you are asked what you want to do with the existing content. If you want to replace it, if you want to replace everything, if you want to replace only sub-content. So again, you cannot say just replace these 4 folders of my catalog. But you can say, please replace my catalog, but not the RPD. So it's at least a bit more granular detail than the migration bundle, which is all or none. And finally, the only way to get all the details, to get all the logs and to find out what happened is the good old command line migration. OBIEE Oracle Analytics server still come with a lot of command lines tools. And in the end, those command lines is what is used by the bar and the migration tool. But by calling them by hand, you can really choose every single detail. It's up to you to decide what every single command will do and how, in which way it performs. And thanks to these command lines, because you call them one by one yourself, you have full logs. So it's not a black box anymore. You are not really just guessing what maybe went wrong. You can really go into every single detail, every single log, fix the digital issue, and keep going with your migration. And you can also just test every single piece. Thanks to these command lines, you can also set up automatic changes like CI/CD for DevOps things. You can really automate deployment and upgrade and migration from old development platform to the new pre-production Oracle server or things like that. And the nice thing is the command lines often didn't change a single thing. The command lines, like the files, are just the same between 10G and Oracle server. So over the 10 years, the commands themselves didn't change much. So it's really leveraging the skills that you learned years and years ago. So now I guess we still have like 5-6 minutes. So let's go quickly through what do you do after an upgrade? Because once you did the upgrade, it's not done. You still have things to do. First of all, you clean up before the upgrade, but once you're done, you still have to check the RPD. Do you still have warnings or errors? Because new version of the tool, Oracle server, new rules. So run a consistency check. Fix every single error. Try to fix every single warning. Try to get rid of as many messages in the RPD as possible. If you keep your RPD clean from the beginning, it will make your life easier for development first, but also for the next upgrade. So really, once upgraded, run consistency check and fix things, please. Every workaround, shortcut, quick win, get rid of it. It's a new platform, it's a new tool, new code base. There are chances that what you had to run to fix as a workaround or a quick win in the past now is there by default. So get rid of custom configuration or custom pieces of code if the product does it out of the box. And this is even more valid if you took the migration bundle with configuration file inside, really go through the specific things you change, revert them, and try as close as vanilla as possible for the new environment. Very important thing. Many people ignore it and forget it. The new tool comes with new features, like we talked about data visualization with these fully new things which is there for free. This means there are new security rules. So you have to make sure that your security model take care of the new things. Are they part of your security model? Are you having inheritance working in the right way? The new out-of-the-box model may be changed. Maybe you are relying on an inheritance on it, and now things change. You imagine it's just like the old one. Nope, there is inheritance in the game. It changed the behavior of the system. So have a review of the security, fix any loophole, fix any issues that has been introduced by the upgrade. A little detail, Oracle made it nice and they just wanted to make some tricks and play some jokes with us. Because it comes from the cloud, Oracle Analytics servers being an alignment with the cloud. In Oracle Analytics Cloud, you are not allowed to touch the file system. You cannot configure files by hand. So there is a new console page, not the WebLogic console, not the WebLogic Enterprise Manager. It's really a console page inside data visualization. This page allows you to set a bunch of settings in nqsconfig.ini or even instanceconfig.xml. So the priorities of which is the driver of the setting is maybe not the file anymore. So go through the console page and just make sure that all your settings that you need are there inside, because maybe you change a file which is overwritten by this console page. So the console page, you can find it in DV. You go to the main menu on the left, top left. You go down to the service administration. You get the configure system settings, and then inside you find things about like allow HTML and this kind of settings. This is something that people, they anyway ignore it before to do an upgrade, but after your upgrade, please make sure that you have a backup and restore process in place. You have a strategy. If your backup and restore process worked in the old system, it maybe doesn't anymore in the new one. It's new for reasons. There are new functionalities, there are changes. So make sure that your backup and restore process really work. There are maybe new ways to do things that are better. And just a little hint, the BI platform schema that you create in the database, in the past, it had mainly logs and usage tracking and those things. It was not really important. In Oracle Analytics Server, it has a lot more content than you can imagine. Maybe, just saying maybe, it's worth to have a backup of that schema. Maybe it's worth to ask your DB team to make sure they can restore it at every single point in time, ideally. And with just like 1 minute left on the time schedule, I guess, I hope, we are now at the Q&A. So I guess if there were a question or in the Q&A on the chat, Christian already took care of most of them anyway.
It looks like there is nothing in the chat at the moment.
Yes, I cannot see any questions at the moment coming through the Q&A, but also the presentation will be available for replay. The lab will be available for 2 weeks. And in the playback dedicated page for this session, the people, when they watch and review as many times they want it, they can also pose questions for you guys there, and you guys will be notified when a question is made or a comment is posted, and you guys can respond on your own convenience. I just saw something pop up on the Q&A. Oh, any challenges faced in real migration, please? Any common mistakes to avoid?
Yeah, so I would say that's actually what I said in the last 10, 15 minutes. I just went through the things that you have to fix and why it makes sense to fix them. Like I said, some weird configuration, some poor workarounds, quick win. You got a quick win. It's called quick for a reason. It's not a real win. You're winning now to lose tomorrow. So get rid of quick wins, get rid of workarounds and shortcuts. Pay attention to some character set, char set, and things like that. It's not a one-to-one migration that you can just say click, click, click next. I mean, that's the process, but then it's really up to your system and how did you configure it and what you did with it.
Christian, so the most important thing is definitely, I mean, character sets, obviously that's one very, very, very specific one. But the most important thing is clean up in terms of actually configure the solution like it's supposed to be. Older versions, especially like 11G. So a common mistake was basically to accept that the tool allowed certain configurations to pass, so they weren't hard stops, because there were no checks enforced. Now, most implementations that we've seen in terms of upgrades that were done by simply taking what's there and just getting it to run again on the newest version, most of those didn't take care of things like this because they did not do a review and an actual check. Okay, should this be this way? In a lot of cases, they just went and said, okay, if it works, it works. We're not going to spend more time on this. This is the worst thing you can do. So either do a real upgrade by looking at what you're upgrading and why you should or should not be upgrading it. Or if you just get it to work in the new solution, you will definitely pay a second and the third and the fourth and the fifth time later on because this hasn't been done. And sadly, we've seen this in a lot of places happening because the mandate is that's given from clients to whoever does the migration is just get it to work again. And that's where we normally come in later on because things are messed up, things don't behave like they should. And if you're already done with the migration because, well, it's running again, yeah, that's where the real problem starts, because then you have a running new system and you need to fix things in the running system. So while people are already working on it and facing errors every single day. So the most common mistake is just get it to run, and just get it to run migrations are just the worst. They will not work in the long term. In the long term, this will mean you will give up the platform, you will move to another product, and that's it, because you're not actually using what's there. So yeah, the coming to the first question, any challenges faced in real migrations? Yes, the biggest challenge is actually not thinking about what are we migrating to, should we do this or not. Wait, there was just another question. You mean to say there is no how-to documents in Oracle support? Yes, of course there are how-to documents. Yeah, but they don't tell you why. They don't tell you what not to do, because how-to doesn't tell you how not to. And how not to and what not to is at least as important as how to and what to do. But you will never find a document of how not or what not, because that's experience, and Oracle can never put that in a document, because then the document would have like 50,000 pages, and you can't cover this in documents.
I mean, never forget Oracle Analytics, OBIEE, It's not a simple tool that does one single job. It's an enterprise platform with tons of settings. You can use it in many ways. Oracle has no way to cover every single use case existing on every single customer.
Exactly.
So the how to cover the 2, 3, maybe 4 generic vanilla use cases. How many real customers use the vanilla one? Because at some point somebody said, I really want it that way. I mean, that way is a bit against the product. Can be done. But whatever you do one day, you will pay it at some other day. So any cheap approach now, you pay it tomorrow. It's like that. There is really no way out. You can maybe spare some money now by doing a quick win thing. You just do an upgrade that works, as Christian said. Well, in 2 years, when you decide to do another upgrade, you will spend twice the time because you will have to first catch up with what you didn't do now and then do the real job in 2 years. So just stick to the point of there are no quick wins. If a quick win is quick for a reason, it's a win now, but you have to clean it up and fix it later on for the long term.
And just to that point, it's actually a very interesting one that I had recently, just for fun. It's not only Oracle Analytics that changes. We mentioned it a couple of times during the presentation. What about you just keep something that seems to work right now in your, going completely outside of Oracle Analytics, in your current corporate browser? And then your corporate browser changes because, well, using a corporate browser that's 4-year-old maybe for security reasons isn't the best thing. So we go to something more recent. And then the quick fix that you kept because it was just working and you didn't have to spend time on it, all of a sudden doesn't work anymore because your outdated browser that still supported it is no longer supported itself, and hence your solution doesn't work anymore because it was never a solution, it was a hack. But nobody looked at it because it just worked. Well, it just works. We're not living in an environment where we have one single tool doing one thing. I mean, if it was this, we would be talking about Notepad and not Oracle Analytics.
Excel. That's Excel.
I didn't want to say Excel.
I know it. That's why I said it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's dangerous going down that road and thinking that, oh, just because Oracle writes the documentation, they will know everything. No, because they can't. They don't want to. They take care of the core product. They take care that their product works in as many cases as possible for as many situations as possible, but they do not prepare for all of those situations in the terms of they do not write a document for every single use case there could be out there. I mean, that's the reason why support exists and then looks at things one by one. But they will not go and give you a 50,000 page document. This is how you do an upgrade. This is all the things that you need to look at. This is what you should not do in this specific case, because, I mean, just if you think about operating system, the database underneath it, and the browsers that you can use, I mean, how many operating systems are there? Times the databases, times the browsers, and then you have the number of permutations possible for upgrade scenarios, and you're in the hundreds of thousands there already. And they can't do this. It's impossible.
So yeah, so keeping it short. If you have no choice, just your job is to remind your boss that things will be paid someday. So just try to tell them that it's better to invest more now to make it clean. But sometimes you don't have the choice. Still, try to inform your boss. That's all you can do. Still, it's better than nothing. You tried at least.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much, guys. And if anyone has any other questions, you guys will see in the replay page and you guys will be able to reply and without any issues.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time and for the amazing session.
Thank you very much for having us. It was a pleasure to wake up at 6.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Francisco, for having us.
Thank you, Gianni.
And
Now we have a big day in front.
Yeah.
Chris. Thank you.
yeah, exactly.
All
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.